Hey guys, welcome back to the stream. I've been getting a lot of support to continue doing these deck techs and homebrews. Today we're going to cover a slightly different deck. This is one of the more, how do I say, more familiar net decks or variants of a net deck. This is my version of Black-Green Constrictor. So just to kind of preface this deck tech, just give you a background on why I'm doing this and why I think it's relevant. So if you're like me and you are interested in playing something like this, you probably do your fair share of research and figuring out, you know, what deck type you'd like to play next. And you know what variant of the deck that you want to play, whether you want to modify it to fit your own needs and play style, or you want to just straight up build a net deck from a pre-existing list. And there's plenty out there. So I know that currently in standard, just overall the decks that have been doing very well consistently across the board, if you looked at sites like TCG Player or even Channel Fireball, you'll notice a lot of variants of Black-Green Constrictor, or like Black-Green Delirium. You'll also see decks like Mardu Vehicles or Red-Blue Control, things like that, or Red Deck Wins, things like that. You'll see some variants, and so the decks that I've played at and have done fairly well for the past 6 weeks since I've gotten in, I've had some pretty good success running a Red-Green Energy, which was a budget deck that I made, Red-Green Pummeler more or less, and I did really well because I kind of caught our LGS a little bit off guard, I think, with that deck being kind of an unorthodox deck, and how quick it actually turned up the aggression, which was great. And then I also did very well with the recent addition of Fling into that deck, so it just accelerated the clock just a hair quicker, but enough to make a difference, which was amazing. So I had fun time doing that. However, I ended up just kind of getting tired of playing the same aggro style, I guess 3 weeks in a row, so I decided to build another budget deck, which was a mono white servos deck list that I had, and I built that deck. It was a ton of fun. It's probably one of my more fun decks to play. I mean, I would consider Black-Green Constrictor fairly fun because it's so consistent, but mono white tokens is even more fun in my opinion than a deck, an aggro or a mid-range deck like Black-Green Constrictor. But anyways, my son, who I got, who I started playing Magic with, or got him into Magic, I should say, once I kind of took him back to our LGS. It's great because now he's being exposed to some FNMs, and he gets a chance to experience a slightly different level of Magic. So we do get to play at home. We play things like dual decks and such, but anyhow, he's been playing my mono white servos deck because it's just so simple. I mean, the curve is very consistent. It's very hard for him to mess up. For an 11-year-old boy, he's doing very well in the FNM scene at our local LGS. So I'm pretty happy with that. So he's been using my mono white servos deck, so that leaves me with, either Red-Green Energy, or I can decide to build a new deck. So I was playing Red-Green Energy for another couple weeks after he decided to use my servos deck, and meanwhile I was kind of acquiring cards and acquiring the core playsets of things like Winding Constrictor, and I already had Tireless Tracker as a part of my Red-Green Energy deck as a sideboard. Servant of the Conduit is also part of that. I ordered a new playset. I did order a new playset of initially Long Tusk Cub, and then I was doing my research, so I did eventually find a black-green aggro deck list, which I found very, very interesting. It ran a couple Draena Liberators of Malakir and a few Rishkars, right? So initially the deck started off as a black-green aggro. I was playtesting that with my son and playtesting that casually, but I found that that wasn't, to me it wasn't as consistent. I don't know. I don't think the Draena was as effective, I mean, for a 3-drop as some of the other cards I currently have in there, or it wasn't as high impact as I would like it to be. I think I just couldn't get used to, I know that it was quick, and I know that it was intended to be a more aggressive oriented playstyle, and it just didn't fit my playstyle. You know, I have played previously competed with a lot more mid-range decks. I like that, so I kind of reworked the deck a few times, and eventually I got to the deck list that I have now and that I have linked. So you know, I just named the deck Black Green Constrictor. There's nothing creative about the name, and even, you know, I would argue nothing too creative about the deck list. It's pretty straightforward, but I'll go ahead and, you know, this is mainly for people who are kind of on the fence if you are deciding to play this, or if you're just kind of curious as to you know, how I went about my deck list. So I'm playing, I'll just go down my deck list and we'll just quickly breeze through it, and then I'll talk about some of the choices and some of the changes. So for creatures, I have 21 creatures total, 3 Glint Sleeve Siphoners. You see here at the very top, Glint Sleeve Siphoners. These are great for helping accelerate card draw. I am sacrificing a life, but it's well worth it. You know, if you get the energy, this is a good card alone, but it's even accelerated even faster with Whiting Constrictor, considering you get the 2 energy every time you attack. It doesn't even have to deal damage, it's attack. And if you somehow manage to keep it alive, you know, you benefit from the extra additional card draw the next turn, so it's great. The menace, you know, and the damage is alright. It's 2 damage on a 2-drop, pretty good. I roll with 1 Ganti, Lord of Luxury. Now Ganti's great for mirror matches, things like that. It's a death touch, 2/3 death touch body, but it also allows you to play and kind of opens up options from your opponent's deck, which is what makes it very versatile for a 4-drop. And this is towards the, you know, one of the higher ends of the curve, other than Gear Hulk. So I like playing 1. I do have an additional 1 sideboarded against mirrors or against other black-green variants, which are great. I'm using currently 3 servants. Sometimes I flex this to 4 depending on my list. My most recent version, I believe I'm rocking 3. I use the extra slot for a different creature. So I'm rolling 2 Tireless Trackers, main board. This is a flex slot as well. It's a great 3-drop, and it's just more versatile and allows me to grind out a little bit longer if I need to, for more of that mid-rangey play versus a more aggressive approach. So obviously the core of any black-green Constrictor variant is going to be these next 3 creatures. So we have Verdurous Gearhulk. I know some people roll 3. I rock 4. I rock 4 Walking Ballistas. Now these 2 playsets are what makes the deck non-budget, I would consider. You know, these are some of the pricier ones. I mean, other than the Nissa, or I'm sorry, the Liliana that I'm playing. I just acquired that through a trade, and I ended up getting a good deal for it. So I'm playing Liliana in this deck. I'm still trying to decide whether or not I like her in this deck, but she seems to do all right for me in this deck, at least to stave off and slow down my opponents long enough for me to make higher impact plays, right? So Walking Ballistas is already a really good and useful utility card. but compound that with Winding Constrictor, and you have yourself, and Virtus Gearhulk putting counters on it. You just have yourself a really obscenely powerful creature and creature ability there with the counter removals for damage. So I've closed out many games casting Gearhulk and applying counters all across the board, and I think the last one I played, the second match I had, I dropped a Gearhulk with 4 different creatures out, plus a Constrictor, and the tokens alone was just enough to overwhelm my opponent. So you always hear about the synergy between that, right? And it's just absurd when you actually get to pull it off, which isn't very uncommon, and the deck just synergizes so well with everything. I mean, I used to think that Winding Constrictor was a necessity to have out to make this deck consistently perform, but that's not the case. It's actually, you almost have like a solidly built foundation, and then Winding Constrictor is just, you know, the whipped cream and cherry on top. It's just makes everything so much better when you have a Constrictor out. So I have those creatures. I'm using 2 Planeswalkers currently, Liliana and Nissa. I could very well just rock a couple Nissas, to be honest with you. I dropped the Nissa round 2, same round, and I dropped, you know, just -2 her right away, and I dropped counters on 4 creatures with a Constrictor in play, and it was just too much. I mean, doing that on turn 5 or turn 4, even leaving mana open for removal, was just too much for my opponent to overcome. I mean, with a Fatal Push or Grasp of Darkness removing one of their boards, and you dropping 3+ or 4+ counters ×2 with a Constrictor out, that's just way too much. 8 power on the board, and removing one of their creatures is just too strong on turn 4. You know, we have a Tune with Ether. This is for mana fixing. We're currently only using 21 lands, but it evens out really well with mana fixing. I've never had a problem with Swamp or Forest, no matter how many dual black or dual green I have, right? So dual black for Gonti and dual green for Verdurous, and you know, likewise with my 2 Planeswalkers, I've never had mana fixing issues. So I'll leave it at that. Aether Hubs for the extra energy for Gonti, or I'm sorry, Glint Sleeve or Servant if I need to produce mana. This is kind of a flex slot too. Don't know how useful this energy is, but you know, in the finals of FNM, playing against Mardu vehicles, this proved, you know, that 1 mana proved to be valuable when I pulled out of mid game, you know, Glint Sleeve, and instead of having it be a useless 2/1 body, I was able to leave it on the board and use it as a draw engine. And if Mardu doesn't have removal available, then you're able to outpace them through card advantage, which is great. Just helps with the grind, and so no complaints here. I don't need to use the energy attached to it, but in a bind it helps out. It makes a slight edge of a difference, so that's pretty good. 4 Blooming Marshes, 4 Hissing Quagmires, and then a few Swamps and Forests here. Okay, so Instance is kind of where the variations come into play, as well as the creatures. In a lot of variations, some people either don't run Blossoming Defenses, or they don't run 4 Fatal Pushes or 3 Grasp or Murders even. So they have various combinations of removal. I like to run 1 Murder as a flex removal for creatures that are either too large or just late game removal. And surprisingly, it has come in handy as a very flexible removal for you know, larger creatures like another Verdurous Gearhulk that's maybe a little too large to remove with Grasp, or for example a Walking Ballista that gets out of hand in Mirror, or you know, in Mardu it's able to remove any other creature in a bind, really. It's great. So I have 1 in there, and this is a flex slot for any other removal that I may need to swap in. So I have I'm rocking 4 Fatal Pushes, 3 Grasp, 1 Murder, 2 Blossoming Defenses as And once again, this kind of allows me to play a little bit more proactively with my creatures, while keeping very minimal, or as much or as little, you know, control mana open as I want. So this kind of gives me the option to play offensively or defensively. This has saved my creatures on a handful of occasions in the last tournament, just with hexproof. Not only that, I mean, you give, you give, and you're swinging with your ballista, and this +2/+2 actually allows you to remove a few more targets, or your additional +2/+2 to your Gearhawk will protect it and trample over, you know, to their planeswalker, or trample over any of their other creatures that they have, if you need to get through, or if you just simply need to keep your creature alive with the stat buff. You have that flexibility. It's such a good flexibility option for 1 green, right? So I rolled 2 Aether Sphere Harvesters. I used to rock 1. I have mainboarded an additional 1 just because it staves off early aggression really well if I'm in a bind. And this makes Servant of the Conduit not useless, and it also makes late game, or a mid to late game, Glint Sleeve useful. This has proved to be very utility and flexible in terms of how I'm using it, especially with, you know, the energy. This is an energy dump if I don't have Glint Sleeves in play. I'm able to simply just stave off aggression by lifelinking this thing and just putting a body in front of things like Heart of Kirin or another Aether Sphere. Even cards like Glorybringer, right? Proved to be extremely useful, because you can always crew this in response to Glorybringer and then use the body with lifelink to actually stave off that 4 points of damage. Not only that, but gain you 3, which is awesome. Since you are sometimes taking a ding from your Glint Sleeves, you're able to recoup that life with Aether Sphere, which is great. Yeah, so I'm happy how this synergizes with my current build. And then for my sideboard, I mentioned another Aether Sphere. I typically like to board this in against Mardu. Like, again, it's just such a flexible slot that I like to put in. Ganti against Mirrors, Grasp of Darkness, great against Mardu, great against a lot of unorthodox or homebrews that might rely on specific creatures. Lifecrafter Bestiary against decks like Blue-Red Control if it needs to be a little bit grindier. I'm able to do that and make sure that I'm getting the cards that I need to outpace Control. Murder if I'm playing against the decks that require large target removal, or hard removal, harder than what my Grasp and Fatal Push might be able to give me. Obnixilis, similar concept. I'm typically utilizing him for that removal and to grind out a little bit further if I need to against specific control decks, or even decks like you know, Black-Green Delirium, things like that. Scrap Heap Scrounger, great for great against, you know, red deck wins against the removal that they have in play, or even great against Delirium, where they're really big on staving off and trying to control the board for Delirium. This is just a good recurring body on the board. Transgress the Mind is such an impactful card once you can board it in afterwards. If you can find a way to get this in, an excuse to use it, I typically find myself boarding this in fairly often, which is why I play 4 copies of this. It just gives me a little bit more flexibility if I know what to expect game 2. Yahini's Expertise, I'm playing this against a lot of like token decks, tribals that I'm seeing on Friday night. It's just great. Not only is the -3/-3 effect great for removal, but the casting of the 3 or less from my hand free 3 CCM is just wonderful. I'm able to drop things like Tireless Tracker and then drop my land, or a Glint Sleeve, for example, or even dropping a Planeswalker afterwards is awesome. So pairing that up or synergizing with that is extremely versatile. So I have that. Maybe boards, these are cards I did take out from my aggro build or other variants just to try out. And like I said, the current deck that I have works right now for my LGS. So this is what's working for me, and may not always, it's the beautiful thing about Black-Green Constrictor is that there's so many variants, and it's so flexible that you can kind of mold it to whatever needs you want. There are a lot of counters and such while we have this, and we're able to adapt, and we're able to adjust and modify this deck to be whatever we need it to be, right? So I find that to be great. Yeah, I'm enjoying this while I can. I know Solemnity is a card that's coming out in Hour of Devastation that won't allow counters, but hopefully we'll see. We're able to play around that. That'll be a very interesting and unique challenge. So we'll see a lot of white coming out with those enchantments. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I included the link to the deck in the description. I don't want to drag this video on any longer than it needs to be, but if you have any questions or concerns, go ahead and drop me a comment, and I'll try to get back to you on why I chose certain things, or even if you have suggestions, feel free to leave a comment on Tapped Out. If you have an account through Tapped Out, leave a comment on there for me, or leave a comment on the video. I check it fairly regularly, but yeah, I don't know. I figured this is good way to kind of share my build here with you guys, and not only that, you're able to kind of see the cards and see the build that I posted in Tapped Out, which is what I like. And yeah, let me know if you guys get to try out this variant. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I found it pretty fun just because it's consistent. I never had a really frustrating match with this. I went 2-0, 2-0, and 2-0 at FNM. So it was great. Won first place, won the promo. So now I have a play set of my Ether Hubs, and won a few packs, and had fun with my son at Friday Night Magic. So it was great. Thank you very much, guys, for the support. I know this is different than the typical content I'm releasing. I covered, I'm recently been covering Magic, the Gathering, deck techs, and theory crafting, when we're not covering Crowfall. Crowfall's in the middle of an update and kind of a weird process, so we don't have a lot of new Crowfall content. But once Crowfall gets back online, I do promise we'll get more Crowfall content in here. I know a lot of you guys, a lot of the viewers and subscribers are here for Crowfall stuff, but try to get a good balance. I know some of my subscribers really enjoy and play Magic, so I thought I'd give you guys a deck tech and give you guys an update on how I did and how I'm playing. So yeah, here you go. Before you go out and spend a bunch of money, just this deck is definitely one of those decks where it's a little bit more costly for the Walking Ballistas and Verdure Scarehawks if you're able to acquire those through trade, or get them for a very good deal online, and you're able to build a deck like this. It's very, very consistent, and it's a very, very high performing deck, and so versatile in how you can build it. So yeah, it's great. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys have any questions or concerns. Other than that, I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks a lot for stopping by, and I appreciate the support. All right, until next time, you guys. Peace out.